All right, so between gas prices, capacity limits lifted, and of course the world watching Ukraine, we have a lot to discuss here. Joining me now for his weekly check-in, Mayor John Tory. Good morning to you.
Hi, Mel.
I want to begin first with Ukraine. We are watching, constantly watching, and you, of course, among the thousands who joined the march in downtown to support Ukraine, to stand with Ukraine. I want to ask about local efforts in what is being done and what we can do to support our friends.
Well, first of all, the rally held at Nathan Phillips Square on Sunday was extraordinary. I mean, it was a huge, huge crowd, and it was made up not just of Ukrainian Canadians, but a lot of people who wanted to support them, including myself and many other leaders from our community. Margaret Atwood was there, for example, which was great. I think in terms of what people can do is they can stand up and be counted on occasions like what you see here on the screen, which was from last Sunday. They can give to the Red Cross. There's a lot of humanitarian needs that are arising there out of all this death and destruction that the invading forces are wreaking on innocent people in Kyiv and other cities. Kyiv, by the way, is a sister city with Toronto. We've had a 30-year relationship with that city, a very special relationship. The mayor has been here to City Hall to visit with me and so on. Secondly, they can prepare for the arrival of refugees. We're expecting and we hope Canada will be very generous in admitting refugees fleeing Ukraine, and they need settlement help when they get here. Ukrainians coming to Canada have been marvelous citizens here over decades and decades, and that will, I'm sure, be true of those who come here in the wake of this controversy. So those are some things that people can do to show their solidarity here in Toronto, and I know that the people of Toronto are hugely behind the people of Ukraine and wanting this to come to an end and wanting these invaders just to go home and stop with this unlawful invasion.
Mayor Tory, is the city prepared to accept refugees? Do we have the capacity?
Yeah, we have a wonderful newcomer organization inside the City Hall that's part of the city government, but even more importantly, we have magnificent newcomer settlement, refugee settlement organizations like Costi and others, and these are people that don't have unlimited capacity because we have a flow of refugees coming into Toronto and to Canada on a consistent basis from around the world. But the answer to the question is we will ramp up and find that capacity as we have for previous waves of refugees, whether it's coming from Afghanistan or from, Sri Lanka, Uganda. I mean, there have been over the years, of course, many waves of Vietnamese refugees who've come here and settled very successfully, made a big contribution as they continue to make to the success of our city. And we will do it again for people from Ukraine. And of course, let's remember as well, there is a very big Ukrainian Canadian community here who have shown over and over again that they would support the arrival of new comers to Toronto as refugees from this terrible invasion.
Let's turn to COVID-19 now. And I saw a lot of smiles on faces as people went to the Raptors game, almost a complete packed house last night. I know we have the visuals of it as well. You know, when you see this almost 2 years later and you see these visuals, as mayor of our city, where do you go when you see this?
I just think, thank goodness, we're getting to the stage where, that is possible again. And I hope that we are cautious. You can see some people wearing masks there as they're required to do inside, that people do that for, an additional period of time just to be careful that we don't backslide and lose all the gains that we've made. Because it's not only fun to be able to go to a Raptors game or to go to a restaurant without capacity restrictions or any of these kinds of things, a theater, but it's also very necessary to get the downtown and the citywide economy running again. One of my jobs, in addition to managing the pandemic and keeping people safe, together with the others on our great team Toronto, has also been to make sure that we can get the economy going again as quickly as we can. And this, these kinds of crowds going to downtown events like Raptors games and Leafs games is very important to the, re-enlivening and the functioning of the downtown economy, all those businesses that have suffered so terribly, restaurants and other kinds of retailers. So, again, we've got to achieve a balance, move forward on the economy, get people back to work, get people back on transit, but at the same time, make sure that we're doing it safely so that we don't have any kind of backsliding back to the state of affairs that we all want to be well rid of.
Speaking of back to work, where does the city stand with, so the province lifting the proof of vax requirements? Will the city be extending it for city workers? What does that look like?
Well, the vaccination mandate policy that said that city workers should be fully vaccinated remains in place, and it will remain in place. And obviously, all these things are being looked at in the context of day-by-day, developments that take place. But that policy remains in place. We've asked that the vast majority of city workers never stop going to work on the job, as it were, meaning on the job at wherever they went, which is solid waste collectors or water plant workers or firefighters. And so they'll continue to go to work. But those who are in office jobs who might have worked from home, we've we've got them coming back to work voluntarily now, but March 21st is the day they're expected back to work. And we hope that's true of all the downtown employers, because we've got to get the downtown, as I discussed earlier, we've got to get that going again and be part of a strong recovery for the city. And so the vaccine policy remains in effect for the safety of the workers. This was about the safety of the workers and the public who interact with them, nothing more. It was not ideological. It was simply a practical thing to protect the safety of the workers with each other and also with the public with whom they interact on a very regular basis.
We've run out of time, but I just want to ask you very quickly, for those who maybe lost their job because they didn't abide by the vaccine policy, will they be getting their jobs back eventually?
What we did do at the beginning of the year was to offer those people a chance, even though they had already lost their job, to get vaccinated and come back to work. And I understand some have done that, but the other people, unfortunately, made a choice that caused them to lose their jobs, and that is where things sit at the moment. I very much regret that, but we had to bring in a policy that respected and protected the health of the people who work here and the health of the public who interact with the people who work at City Hall. And that policy was very clear, and people were given lots of time to make a choice, which they made, and that's a free choice that that people can make, and they did. And so I very much regret that, but the policy remains in place, and those people remain, not in the employ of the city as a result of a choice they made.
All right, Mayor Tory, as always, appreciate you taking the time. We'll talk to you again next week. But right now, you go over to Dina and Devo.
Hey,
Mayor Tory.
Mayor Tory time.
Morning.
That's right.
Okay, well,
that's
okay.
right.
Oh.
So this,
yeah, what's that?
This is a combination.
What's with the reluctant side?
So I'm a bit wondering here how to size this up with Devo and Dina.
I'll tell you.
The D's, the double D's.
You got the double D's, Mayor Tory. We're back.
Devo is wearing his Raptors red-ish.
Raptors wine.
Okay,
sure.
Like your
Burgundy.
beautiful sign right in front of your office space, Mayor Tory. How'd you feel about last night?
I felt good. I felt good in two respects. I mean, one is, there's no question when you're in one of the reasons they call it the home court advantage is because you're in your home and your fans are cheering you on, and they say it's like having an extra player on the court. So that's good for the Raptors because they need that in the push to get strongly into the playoffs. Yeah. But the other part I felt good about is you had 20,000 people coming downtown using the transit system, hopefully going to restaurants and things like that. And we need to have that happen over and over again. I want the baseball players and owners to get their things sorted out so we can get the Jays playing again very soon. This is all good for the health of downtown and for something that's now a big priority of mine, which is making sure the city recovers as strongly as ever to get people back to work and back on transit and get life back to normal as fast as we can. So I thought it was great.
Yeah, that's it, Mayor Tory. We know that entertainment and getting people out there, live music, things like that is huge for you. You just mentioned about Major League Baseball. They need to get it together. You're right. So we just found out, of course, 2 series now canceled, 3 games against the Orioles and 3 home games against the Rays that the Jays were supposed to play are canceled. So 2 series, and that could continue to be more if they mess around with that. How does that affect, you think, early spring for us here in Toronto?
Well, it just does, because you've got, say, the opening day crowd by itself is 50,000 people coming downtown, using the transit, going to the restaurants and going to the bars after the game. And so, those games, those few games at the beginning are not happening. So let's hope they get it settled. I was very excited to hear you talking about the Junos. I'm so excited. We were supposed to have them last year for the 50th anniversary, and it was done virtually because of COVID. Now we're going to have this great new venue at the amphitheater at Ontario Place, Budweiser Stage, And, I think it's going to be a star-studded lineup. And, I just think it's going to be great. And it's part of a push that Toronto wants to make to have the Junos here, very regularly, because I think this is the music capital of the country, one of the music capitals of the world. Look at those people you talked about who are nominees. Justin Bieber, Shawn Mendes, you mentioned The Weeknd, who these are globally recognized musicians, let alone being nominated for our great national Juno Award. So I just think it's fantastic for Toronto. And again, that will bring thousands of people, because it's a whole week of celebrations. That'll bring thousands of people downtown and really get the city back on track. The St. Patrick's Day Parade's coming on the 20th. You've then got Pride coming shortly after that, the Caribbean Carnival. These are all things to look forward to, finally back on the streets. The CNE, all of that stuff will hopefully be happening if we can keep our fingers crossed on COVID.
You mentioned international stars. You happen to run.
She's been dying
I got
to ask about this.
Before you go, I know you have a busy day.
Dying to ask about this.
Ryan Reynolds chit-chatting on the red carpet a couple of days ago. It was Thursday night, the Adam Project. He visited us earlier on in the day. You two look like you're having a time. What the heck were you guys talking about?
Well, first of all, I should say, when I saw the picture later, I thought I must have shrunk because I'm 6 feet tall, but it sort of reminds me how tall he is.
He's tall.
But I want to tell you something. I've had the privilege in this job of meeting a lot of people from show business and from, people who are, globally known figures. This is the nicest man.
Yes.
I mean, he talked to me with his feet both firmly planted on the ground, tall as he may be. We just chatted about Toronto, about the movie industry. I tried to convince him to change his handle to, I think it's called Van City
Van City
Ryan or something.
Yeah.
I said, well, he really should change it to T.O. And we talked about that. We had a negotiation on that, which I wasn't successful in the first round.
Probably
but I'll
not.
keep
Yeah.
at it. But I just thanked him for all the work he'd done for sick kids too. I was one of the people who put on that crazy sweater to help raise money for sick kids, and that's an initiative of his. And he doesn't come from Toronto; he's a proud Canadian, but he's helped sick kids a lot. And so, but just the nicest guy. Like really, he is as nice as he seems in his movies. And I then saw the movie called The Adam Project, which is again a vintage kind of Ryan Reynolds movie, in that he's a very engaging, endearing sort of character, and it's kind of a fun movie to see.
Great family film. Love it. I think you'll change it to T.O. when you change your name to Torianto. John Torianto.
Look, I'd consider it. I'd consider it.
I think it's a fair trade-off.
Okay. Well,
I still don't think he will, though.
He didn't say that.
I don't know if he'll turn his back on Van City. I don't know if he can. Yeah.
But you're right. He's one of the nicest. And he is, I think he's 6'2". So you're 6 feet, but we do shrink, Mayor Tory. I already said this. I've shrunk, I feel like, at least half an inch.
Yeah, I'm almost as tall as Dina, finally.
Look at that picture. That guy.
Look at you two.
My son was measuring his kids, and I said, well, would you measure me? Because I want to see if I have shrunk. And he said, I'm 5'11" and a half. So I've shrunk half an inch.
See?
That guy's more than 6'2", okay?
I'll tell you this, but he turned to Sid and I when we got up to take a photo. He goes, you two are tall for TV people. And we look at him and we go, you're tall for a movie star. Because half the time they come in, they're this big. But they're like these big superheroes on the screen.
Mayor Tory,
exactly.
He had to like straighten his back when he gave me a hug. Don't worry, he's one of those. So he didn't say that to me about being tall.
Did
for
he
TV
give Sid a
people.
hug too? He might have hesitated.
You kind of pushed him away a bit. We don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, it was a little awkward for everybody else. I got the lone hug in the building. Everyone's a little bit bitter.
Not even here
I had to take a little gentle shot, even though he's away. We just got to keep him on his toes in case he's watching.
Thanks, Mayor Tory.
Mayor Tory, good to see you.
Great to talk to you. Bye. Have fun. Bye.
You too.
See ya.
He's not even here to defend himself, poor Sid. It was fun though.
I think he would have just conceded in that one. He would have been like, yeah, you're right.